Save my tribe, and I will give you strong children," pleaded the Apache woman to the rancher. The sun hung low in the desert sky, casting long, golden shadows over the rugged land. The earth was dry and cracked, and the wind carried the faint, sharp scent of sage and dust. In this vast open space, where mountains rose like silent sentinels in the distance, life was never easy. The Apache people had lived here for generations, learning to survive in the harshness of the desert, respecting its beauty and dangers alike. But now the land seemed harsher than ever. The tribe faced hunger, illness, and the threat of outsiders who sought to take what little they had left. Among them was a young Apache woman named Eileen. She was strong and determined, with eyes that reflected both courage and worry. Eileen had grown up hearing the stories of her ancestors, tales of brave warriors, wise leaders, and the spirits that watched over their people. But hearing stories and living them were very different. Her tribe had been forced from their traditional lands and had been wandering for months, trying to find a safe place to live. Each day was a struggle to find water, food, and shelter. The children were tired and hungry, and the elders were growing weak. Eileen carried the weight of all their hopes on her shoulders, knowing that if she failed, many would suffer. One morning, as the sun rose over the desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Eileen decided to leave the small group she had been traveling with. She needed to find help, someone who could give her people a chance to survive. Her heart pounded as she walked across the dry plains, her feet crunching against the stones. She had heard of the ranchers who lived beyond the desert, men who owned vast stretches of land and animals. Some were kind and some were cruel, but any help was better than none. She moved quickly, keeping low to avoid being seen from a distance. Every rustle of a bush, every shadow cast by the rocks, made her pause and listen. After hours of walking, Eileen finally spotted a small ranch in the distance. Smoke rose gently from a chimney, and horses grazed in a nearby field. She slowed her pace, studying the place carefully. This was the moment she had hoped for but dreaded at the same time. Approaching a stranger was dangerous. Many outsiders saw her people as enemies, and she had heard stories of what could happen to those who were caught. But she also knew that staying hidden would not save anyone. Her people's survival depended on her courage. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out from behind a rock and started toward the ranch. Samuel, the rancher, was outside feeding his animals when he noticed her. He was a tall man, with rough hands and a face weathered by years of sun and wind. He had grown up on this land and had learned to live with its challenges. Breath. He looked at Eileen cautiously, unsure whether she was a threat or someone in need. The woman's clothes were simple, worn from travel, and her eyes held a mixture of fear and determination that made him pause. Best. She stopped a few feet away from him and raised her hand slightly, a gesture of peace. "Please," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "Save my tribe and I will give you strong children." Samuel blinked, startled by her words. At first, he didn't understand. The request seemed strange, even impossible. What did she mean by strong children? Yet there was something in the way she spoke, in the urgency in her voice, that made him listen carefully. He could see the desperation in her eyes, the silent plea for help. It was clear she had traveled a long way, risking everything to reach him.
"Who are you?" he asked, his voice cautious but calm.
"Where is your tribe? What has happened?" Eileen took a deep breath and began to speak. She told him about her people, how they had been driven from their lands, how food and water were scarce, and how the children and elders were suffering. She described the dangers they faced from raiders and from men who wanted to take their land. Bah. Her voice trembled at times, but she never wavered in her determination. She spoke of the spirits of the desert, of the lessons her ancestors had taught her, and of the need for someone to help her people survive. Samuel listened in silence, his brow furrowed. He had known the desert was harsh, but hearing the story of Aylin's people brought the reality of it close to home. He had faced challenges on his ranch, had struggled through droughts and harsh winters, but this was different. These were people, not just livestock or land. They had nowhere to go, no one to turn to, and now they were asking him for help. Aylin's eyes met his, and for a moment there was only the desert and the weight of her words. "I know it is dangerous," she said softly. "But if you help us, you will not only save lives, you will give us hope. And I promise you this, your kindness will not be forgotten. My children will grow strong enough to honor you and our people." Samuel could feel the sincerity in her words. He thought of his own children, playing in the fields, laughing and running freely. He imagined the hardships they would face if no one helped those who needed it most. For a moment, the desert seemed to grow quieter, as if listening to the choice he was about to make. He swallowed hard, realizing that helping Aylin and her tribe would not be easy. It could put his ranch at risk, make him a target for those who did not want the Apache people to survive. But he also knew that courage was not the absence of fear. It was acting in spite of it. But "Very well," he said finally, his voice firm but kind. "I will help your people. Tell me where they are, and we will find a way." Aylin's face brightened with relief, and for the first time in days, a small smile appeared on her lips. She nodded, grateful beyond words. Together they began to plan how she would lead him to her tribe, how he could provide food, water, and protection, and how they might work together to ensure survival in this unforgiving land. As they set out toward the edge of the desert where her people waited, Samuel could not help but feel a sense of purpose he had never known before. The sun climbed higher, warming the land, and for the first time in a long while there was hope. The bond between the rancher and the Apache woman, fragile but powerful, had begun. Each step they took was a step toward survival, a step toward trust, and a step toward a future neither of them could yet imagine. Throughout the journey, Aylin told Samuel more about her people, their customs, their stories, the names of the children, the songs they sang, and the lessons they lived by. He listened intently, fascinated by a world so different from his own. In return, he shared stories of his ranch, of his family, of the seasons and the struggles of raising livestock. Though their worlds were apart, they found common ground in their shared desire to protect those they loved and to find strength in the face of challenges. As night fell and they made camp under the stars, the desert seemed less lonely. The fire crackled warmly between them, casting dancing shadows over their faces. Aylin's eyes shone with hope, and Samuel felt a quiet determination settle in his heart. He knew the path ahead would be difficult, but the connection they had made in those few hours gave him courage. The night was filled with the sounds of the desert, the whispering wind, the distant calls of nocturnal animals, and the soft murmur of a woman who had dared to ask for help, and a man who had chosen to listen. For Aylin, this moment marked the beginning of a journey that could change the fate of her people. For Samuel, it was the start of a new understanding, a lesson in bravery, compassion, and the power of trust. Together they were about to step into a story that neither could have imagined, a story of survival, hope, and the strength of the human spirit. And in that quiet desert night, under a sky full of stars, the first chapter of their journey unfolded, promising a future that neither of them would ever forget. After the first encounter with Aylin, Samuel returned to his ranch, the words of the Apache woman echoing in his mind. Her plea, "Save my tribe, and I will give you strong children," had left him puzzled at first, but now it weighed on him like a stone he could not set down. He walked slowly among his animals, feeding the horses and checking the fences, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Barry. Every time he glanced at the horizon, he imagined Island leading her people across the desert, tired, hungry, and desperate. He could not ignore their plight, Bet. Helping her tribe, however, was not a simple matter. The desert was unforgiving, and providing for so many people would be dangerous. Best. Samuel knew the risks. There were other settlers nearby, some of whom did not welcome outsiders, especially Native Americans. A rumor of bandits and raiders traveling through the area only added to his worry. If he was seen aiding the Apache, his ranch could be attacked, his livestock stolen, and his family put in danger. The thought made his chest tighten. Yet he could not shake the image of the children, their thin faces and bright, hopeful eyes, waiting for someone to help them. He thought back to his own family. His two children, laughing as they chased each other across the fields, seemed to represent the very thing Aelin had promised: strong, resilient children. He realized that her words had a deeper meaning. By helping her people, he would be nurturing a kind of strength that went beyond his own family. It was a strength that would grow in the hearts of children, in the spirit of a people who had survived countless hardships. That thought gave him a sense of purpose he had never felt before. That evening, Samuel sat by the fire outside his small cabin, the desert wind rustling the dry grass. He made a list of what would be needed to help the tribe: food, water, tools, and perhaps medicine. He also thought about how he could do it quietly, without drawing attention. He could not risk angering the settlers or inviting trouble to his ranch. The plan would have to be careful, patient, and precise. He would need to earn their trust, and they would need to trust him in return. The next morning, Samuel prepared to meet Island again. He gathered a small amount of supplies: dried meat, water, and some blankets. It was not much, but it was a start. When he rode out to meet her, he found her waiting near the edge of the desert, her face shaded with determination. She smiled faintly when she saw him approaching.
"You came," she said simply.
I thought about what you said. I cannot ignore your people.
But we must be careful. The desert is dangerous, and there are those who would not welcome us helping you. Aelin's eyes reflected both gratitude and understanding. We have known danger all our lives, she said. But we cannot give up. My people depend on me, and now it seems I must depend on you as well. Together they began the journey to her tribe, moving slowly across the desert. Samuel observed her closely as she led the way, guiding him around dangerous patches of sand and showing him where water could be found in hidden streams. He marveled at her knowledge of the land. Every rock, every plant, every shadow seemed familiar to her, as if she had an unspoken conversation with the desert itself. He realized how much he had underestimated the wisdom of her people, their ability to survive where others would fail. Breaths. Along the way, Samuel and Island talked. She told him about her tribe's traditions, their rituals, and the way they respected every living creature. She explained how children were taught to be strong, not just in body, but in heart and mind. Samuel listened intently, feeling a growing respect for her and the people she represented. In return, he shared his own experiences, how he had built the ranch, how he cared for his animals, and how he had learned to read the weather and the land. Though their worlds were different, they found common ground in their shared desire to protect those they loved. The journey was not without challenges. At one point, they encountered a patch of desert too hot and dry for travel. The sun beat down relentlessly, and the air shimmered with heat. Samuel began to feel the weight of exhaustion, his throat dry and cracked. But Aelin kept moving steadily, encouraging him to take small breaks and drink water. She reminded him that persistence was stronger than speed, and that survival often depended on patience and careful planning. Samuel admired her strength and determination, realizing that it was not just physical strength that mattered in the desert, but also courage, wisdom, and resilience. After several days of travel, they finally spotted the Apache tribe in the distance. The small encampment lay in a valley, surrounded by rocky hills and sparse trees. Samuel could see children running between tents, elders sitting quietly under the shade, and women working to prepare meals. The sight filled him with a mixture of awe and concern. He understood the responsibility he was about to take on. Helping them would require more than food and water. It would require trust, leadership, and careful planning. Aelin approached the tribe cautiously, calling out softly to the elders. There were wary eyes watching them as they came closer. Some of the men gripped simple weapons, unsure of the stranger who had arrived with Aelin. Samuel dismounted his horse, holding his hands up in a gesture of peace. Aelin explained who he was and why he had come. Slowly, suspicion gave way to curiosity, and then to cautious acceptance. The tribe recognized the sincerity in both their eyes. Over the next few days, Samuel began to help the tribe in practical ways. He brought food and water, shared his knowledge of farming and irrigation, and helped repair shelters. The children watched him with curiosity, learning quickly from his methods. The elders observed, sometimes skeptical, but gradually they saw the benefits of his assistance.
Aelin worked tirelessly alongside Samuel, bridging the gap between her people and the stranger who had chosen to help them.
Ba 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 ba. She translated his words, explained his intentions, and guided the tribe in implementing new techniques that could improve their chances of survival.
As they worked together, Samuel and Aelin began to develop a quiet trust.
They communicated not just through words, but through actions. When Samuel saw a child struggling to carry a heavy load, Aelin guided him to help without embarrassing the child. When he repaired a shelter, she made sure the tribe knew it was for their comfort, not for control. Their partnership was delicate, built on respect, patience, and understanding. The tribe began to regain hope. Children who had been weak now ran with renewed energy. Elders who had been sick or tired showed signs of strength returning. Samuel marveled at the resilience of the Apache people and the dedication of Aelin, who had carried the weight of their survival with unwavering courage. He realized that helping them was not just an act of kindness. It was an opportunity to witness the power of human spirit, determination, and community. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Samuel and Aelin sat together quietly. The air was filled with the soft sounds of the tribe settling for the night. The crackle of small fires, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle rustle of the wind. Samuel reflected on the journey so far, on the risks he had taken, and on the trust he had begun to build. Aelin sat beside him, her eyes reflecting both gratitude and cautious optimism. They shared a moment of quiet understanding, knowing that the path ahead would be difficult, but also knowing that together they could face whatever challenges came. In the days that followed, Samuel continued to help the tribe, teaching them techniques to make their crops stronger and their shelters more secure. Aelin guided her people, encouraging them to work together and trust the stranger who had chosen to help. Slowly, the tribe began to recover, gaining strength, confidence, and hope. Samuel realized that the promise Aelin had spoken of strong children was not just about physical strength, but about the strength of spirit, courage, and the bond between people who cared for one another. By the time the sun rose high in the desert sky, Samuel and Aelin had laid the foundations of a partnership that would change the fate of the tribe. Though challenges remained and the desert still held many dangers, there was hope now. A hope born of trust, courage, and the willingness to act in the face of fear. Samuel understood that helping the Apache people was not just an act of compassion. It was a choice that would shape his life and theirs in ways he could not yet imagine. And so, as the desert wind whispered through the rocks and the sun cast its golden light on the land, the journey of survival, trust, and determination continued. Samuel and Island, each carrying the weight of responsibility, knew that the true test was only beginning. But they also knew that by working together and by trusting each other, they could face the challenges ahead and ensure that the tribe would not only survive, but thrive.
Days turned into weeks as Samuel worked alongside Aylin and her tribe.
The desert sun beat down on them, hot and unrelenting, but the spirit of the tribe seemed to grow stronger with every passing day. Samuel had brought seeds, tools, and knowledge of farming, but he quickly realized that survival in the desert required more than just supplies. It required courage, patience, and a deep understanding of the land, a wisdom that Aylin carried within her. Each morning the tribe gathered near the small stream that trickled through the valley. Psh! Children ran to fetch water, while elders prepared simple meals from what little they had. Samuel observed them quietly at first, studying their routines, learning their customs, and trying to earn their trust. He had not expected the task to be so delicate. Many in the tribe were wary of outsiders, and some of the men and women whispered doubts about his intentions. But Aylin stood beside him, translating his words and guiding the tribe to understand that he meant no harm. Slowly, the walls of suspicion began to crumble. Samuel began teaching the tribe simple methods to grow crops in the desert soil. He showed them how to dig small irrigation channels, how to conserve water, and how to rotate crops to ensure they had food throughout the harsh months. The children watched with wide eyes, eager to learn, while the adults followed instructions carefully. At first, there were mistakes: watering too much, planting in the wrong spots, or breaking fragile tools. But Samuel encouraged them gently, emphasizing that failure was part of learning. Aylin smiled quietly at his patience, grateful that he understood the importance of teaching with respect. The desert, however, remained unforgiving. One afternoon, a sudden sandstorm swept across the valley, whipping up dust and debris, making it almost impossible to see. Samuel and the tribe worked together to protect their shelters, covering the crops with cloth and tying down tents. The wind roared like a wild animal, and the children clung to their mothers, frightened by the chaos. Samuel realized how vulnerable they truly were. The storm passed after hours, leaving a thick layer of dust over the land, but it had also revealed the strength of the tribe. They had survived together, working as one, and Samuel felt a deep respect for their resilience. During quieter moments, Samuel and Island would walk together, discussing the future.
"We cannot stay here forever," she said one evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink.
"We need a plan for the months ahead. Food will run out if we do not prepare."
Samuel nodded, his brow furrowed.
"I know. We can plant more crops, store water, and even hunt carefully for small animals.
But we must also be ready for outsiders who may not wish to see your tribe survive." Island's eyes reflected determination. "We have faced danger before. We will face it again. But now, we have a chance to thrive, not just survive."
And that is worth every risk. The trust between Samuel and the tribe grew stronger with each passing day.
Children learned to help with small chores, elders shared stories of the past, and young adults worked alongside Samuel to build more secure shelters. Island watched with pride as her people began to flourish, their hope rekindled by the presence of someone who cared. She knew that survival was not just about food and water, it was about morale, courage, and the belief that a brighter future was possible. Desperation. Yet, the desert held challenges that went beyond weather and hunger. One evening, while Samuel was checking a water source, he noticed tracks in the sand, human footprints, some unfamiliar and heavy. Bear. He quickly returned to the camp and alerted Island. They watched cautiously from a distance as a small group of men approached, strangers who seemed to be scouting the area. Samuel's heart pounded. He knew that conflict could erupt at any moment, and the safety of the tribe was now in his hands. Island gathered the tribe quietly and explained the situation. They hid the children in the tents and prepared to defend themselves if necessary. Samuel stood beside her, ready to protect them, but also hoping that the strangers would pass without incident. As the men drew closer, the tension in the air was palpable. Every rustle of the wind, every shifting shadow seemed amplified. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the strangers turned and left, moving away from the valley. Relief washed over the tribe, and Samuel felt a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. The desert was dangerous, but together they had faced the threat and survived. The bond between Samuel and Aylin deepened during these trials. He saw her bravery, not just in words, but in actions. How she moved among her people, encouraging them, calming them, and guiding them through every challenge. Her strength inspired him to act with patience, courage, and compassion. He realized that leadership was not about commanding, but about serving, and that true trust was built through consistent care and understanding.
As the tribe grew stronger, Samuel also noticed changes in the children.
They began to run faster, play longer, and show curiosity about the world around them. Their eyes were bright, full of energy, and their laughter echoed across the valley. Island's promise, once a mysterious and poetic statement, now took on a tangible meaning. The children were indeed growing strong, not just in body, but in spirit, learning resilience, patience, and the value of working together. Samuel felt a quiet pride, knowing that his efforts had contributed to their growth. Despite progress, every day brought new lessons. One afternoon, a drought threatened the small crops they had planted. The ground was cracking, and water sources were drying up faster than expected. Samuel worked tirelessly, digging deeper channels, conserving what little water remained, and teaching the tribe to do the same. Island encouraged everyone to stay calm, reminding them that panic would only make the situation worse. Through cooperation and careful planning, they managed to save enough crops to sustain the tribe until the rains returned. Bay lay back and to understand that helping Aylin's tribe was not just about providing food or water, it was about nurturing hope, guiding them to self-sufficiency and showing that survival was possible even in the harshest conditions. He saw how the tribe's unity strengthened under adversity, and he marveled at how Island inspired them to continue despite fear and exhaustion.
Every day was a challenge, but also an opportunity to witness courage, kindness, and resilience in action.
As the weeks passed, Samuel and Aylin began to share stories under the starry desert sky. They spoke of their families, of past hardships, and of dreams for the future. Samuel realized that their connection went beyond trust and cooperation. It was a friendship rooted in shared purpose and mutual respect. Island, too, found comfort in Samuel's presence, seeing him not just as a helper, but as a partner in the struggle to protect her people.
The tribe began to thrive in small but meaningful ways.
Children played freely, women and men worked together efficiently, and elders smiled with renewed energy. Samuel could see the impact of their combined efforts, and it filled him with a quiet sense of accomplishment. The promise of strong children, once abstract, was now coming to life before his eyes. The tribe was becoming stronger, healthier, and more united, all because of cooperation, care, and determination. One morning, as the sun rose over the valley, Samuel noticed something that made him pause. The desert, though still harsh, seemed less intimidating than before. The tribe had adapted to its challenges, learned its rhythms, and built small but significant protections against its dangers. Samuel realized that this was the true power of community and guidance. When people worked together, sharing knowledge, skills, and courage, they could turn even the most difficult environment into a place of life and hope. Samuel felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that he had made a difference. Island, standing beside him, shared his satisfaction quietly. "We have come far," she said softly. "But the journey is not over. We must continue to teach, to protect, and to guide our people." "Strength is built day by day," he nodded, understanding that her words were true. The desert had tested them, shown them the limits of endurance, and demanded patience and wisdom. But it had also revealed the resilience of the human spirit and the power of trust, courage, and collaboration. Samuel knew that the work ahead would be challenging, but he also knew that together they could face it. And so, the days continued, filled with work, learning, and quiet moments of reflection. The tribe grew stronger, the children healthier, and the bond between Samuel and Island deeper. The desert was still unforgiving, but they had learned that survival was possible, not just through strength alone, but through courage, trust, and unity. With every sunrise, they faced new challenges. Yet they faced them together, ready to protect, guide, and nurture the future of the tribe. The days grew longer, and the desert heat no longer felt as unbearable as it had at the beginning of Samuel and Island's journey.
By now, the Apache tribe had learned to rely on more than just luck to survive. They had adapted to the land, found hidden water sources, planted small but thriving crops, and built sturdier shelters.
Samuel had taught them techniques for conserving water and protecting their crops, while Island continued to guide her people with wisdom and patience. Together they had begun to create a community that could withstand the harshness of the desert. Samuel watched as the children ran across the valley, their laughter echoing through the rocks and small hills. Their energy and joy reminded him of the first time he had met Aylin when the tribe seemed fragile and desperate. Now those same children were growing strong, learning not just to survive but to play, explore, and dream. Island's promise, the meaning behind her cryptic words about strong children, was becoming real before his eyes. These children were not just physically stronger. They were learning resilience, confidence, and the courage to face challenges without fear. Island moved among her people, offering guidance and encouragement. She spoke to the elders in a respectful tone, listening to their wisdom while introducing new ideas Samuel had shared. She worked alongside the young men and women, helping them repair shelters, plant crops, and care for the children. Her presence was a quiet force, steady and unwavering. Samuel realized that her leadership was as important as his guidance. Without her, the tribe might have accepted his help, but it would not have become truly empowered. But the work was hard, but the tribe was thriving. Each day brought new challenges, and each challenge became an opportunity for growth. Samuel helped the tribe build larger irrigation channels, allowing the crops to survive even during periods of little rain. Aylin taught the children songs and stories from their ancestors, ensuring that even as they adapted to new methods, they would not forget their history. Slowly, the tribe began to feel a sense of pride and hope that had been missing for many months. One morning, Samuel noticed a group of children struggling to carry water from the stream. Without thinking, he ran over to help, and soon Aylin joined him. Together, they guided the children, showing them how to carry the water safely without spilling it. The children laughed as they tried to balance the containers, and Samuel felt a warmth in his heart that he had never experienced before. This simple moment, a shared effort, a lesson learned, a child's laughter, was a sign that their work was having a lasting impact. As the tribe grew stronger, so did their ability to defend themselves. Samuel had taught them simple techniques to protect the valley, from setting up early warning systems to building small barriers around their shelters. Island organized groups of men and women to watch over the tribe during the night, ensuring that everyone remained safe. Though the desert could be harsh and unpredictable, the tribe now had the confidence and skills to face threats together. Samuel was proud to see how quickly they had learned, and he admired Island's leadership and dedication. The bond between Samuel and Island had deepened as well. They shared quiet moments beneath the stars, talking about their hopes for the tribe and their dreams for the future. Samuel told her about his family back at the ranch, and Aylin shared stories of her ancestors and the lessons they had passed down through generations. They laughed, exchanged ideas, and learned from one another. Over time, a mutual respect and admiration had grown between them, rooted in trust and shared purpose. One evening, a small crisis arose. A sudden thunderstorm had filled the valley with water, threatening to wash away the newly planted crops. Samuel and Aylin moved quickly, organizing the tribe to build small barriers and channels to divert the water. The rain poured heavily, but the tribe worked together tirelessly, following the guidance of the two leaders. By the time the storm ended, the crops were safe, and everyone was exhausted but relieved. Samuel looked around at the tribe, at the teamwork, the resilience, and the determination, and he felt a deep pride in what they had accomplished together. The children, in particular, had changed the most. No longer weak and fragile, they ran freely across the valley, helping with chores, learning new skills, and discovering the beauty of the desert. Samuel watched as a group of boys tried to catch small rabbits while girls gathered herbs and berries for cooking. The children's laughter filled the air, and their energy reminded everyone of the promise Aylin had made, the promise of strong children who would carry the legacy of their people forward. Aylin noticed the changes too. Bass. She had seen her people transform from weary, cautious survivors into confident, capable members of a thriving community. She felt a deep satisfaction knowing that the efforts of both Samuel and herself had contributed to this transformation. But she also knew that their journey was not over. There would always be challenges in the desert, and the tribe would need guidance and support to continue thriving. Basin. As the weeks passed, Samuel and Aylin worked on long-term plans for the tribe. They discussed ways to improve farming techniques, ensure access to water, and teach the children survival skills that would serve them throughout their lives. They planned for education, sharing stories, and teaching the next generation about both the traditions of the Apache and the practical knowledge needed to survive in the harsh environment. Best, Samuel realized that helping the tribe was not just about immediate survival. It was about building a future, creating a community that could endure challenges for generations to come. The tribe also began to show gratitude in small but meaningful ways. They prepared simple gifts for Samuel, cooked meals for him, and shared their stories. Children ran to greet him each morning, eager to show what they had learned.
Elders smiled and nodded in appreciation, and Aylin often whispered words of thanks for his help. Samuel felt deeply moved by these gestures.
He realized that the strongest bonds were formed not through wealth or power, but through shared effort, trust, and care for one another. One morning, Aylin took Samuel aside and spoke softly. "Look at them," she said, gesturing to the children playing in the valley. "They are strong now, not just in body, but in spirit. Your help has made a difference, and mine has guided them, but the true strength comes from their own hearts." Samuel nodded, watching the children climb over rocks and chase each other through the fields. "They are remarkable," he said. "I never imagined I could feel so proud of people I barely knew." Your tribe has taught me more about courage and resilience than I could have learned anywhere else. As the weeks turned into months, Samuel and Aylin continued to work together to ensure the tribe's survival and growth. They trained the young men and women in both farming and basic defense, ensuring that they could protect their home from future dangers. They taught the children not just how to survive, but how to dream, to imagine a future where the tribe could flourish. Every small victory, a successful harvest, a repaired shelter, a child learning a new skill, was celebrated and became a source of pride for the entire community. Samuel began to notice changes in himself as well. He had come to the desert expecting a simple challenge, but what he found was a life-changing journey. He had discovered patience, courage, and the joy of helping others. He had learned to respect not just the land, but the wisdom of the people who had lived with it for generations. And most importantly, he had formed a deep bond with Aylin. a connection built on trust, shared purpose, and mutual admiration. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned shades of pink and gold, Samuel and Aylin stood together on a small hill overlooking the valley. The tribe moved below them, laughing, working, and thriving. Children ran freely, elders smiled, and the adults worked with determination and pride. The promise of strong children, once a mysterious phrase, had taken on a vivid, living meaning. The tribe was stronger, healthier, and more united than ever before. Aylin turned to Samuel, her eyes reflecting both pride and hope. "Appease. We have done something remarkable," she said softly. "We have not just helped our people survive. We have given them the chance to thrive. And the children, they will carry this strength forward just as I promised." Samuel nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest he had never known before. "It is more than I ever imagined," he said. "We have created something lasting here. A future for your people, and perhaps even for my own understanding of what courage and compassion truly mean." The desert, once harsh and unforgiving, now seemed to hum with life. The wind carried the sound of laughter and chatter, the smell of cooking fires and fresh crops, and the quiet strength of a community that had overcome immense challenges. Fast, Samuel knew that the journey was not yet complete, but for the first time he felt a sense of peace and hope that the tribe's future was bright. And so, as the stars began to fill the night sky, Samuel and Aylin stood side by side, watching their people thrive. Bond between them had grown stronger through every challenge, every lesson, and every victory. The tribe's resilience, the children's strength, and the sense of community they had nurtured together were proof that hope, courage, and trust could transform even the harshest land into a place of life and growth. Time moved steadily across the desert, and with it, the Apache tribe grew stronger, healthier, and more confident. The valley that had once been a place of struggle and uncertainty had become a small sanctuary, a place where life flourished against all odds. Samuel continued to work alongside Aylin and her people, teaching skills, providing guidance, and protecting the community whenever danger approached. But now his role had evolved from a simple helper to a trusted friend and an integral part of the tribe's growth. The children, once weak and fragile, now ran freely through the valley, their laughter filling the air. They climbed rocks, helped gather water, and tended to small animals with care and skill. They were strong in body, but even more importantly, they were strong in spirit. They had learned resilience, patience, and cooperation, lessons that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Samuel watched them with pride, realizing that Aylin's promise had been more than words. It was a vision that had come true through courage, effort, and love.
Aylin moved among her people with calm authority.
She encouraged the children, guided the adults, and spoke respectfully to the elders. Her presence was a constant source of reassurance and strength. She had become the heart of the tribe, a leader who could inspire confidence without force, who could nurture hope without demanding it. Samuel admired her deeply. He knew that without her wisdom and dedication, the progress of the tribe would not have been possible. Together, they had created a community that was not only surviving, but thriving. The bond between Samuel and Aylin had grown into something profound. They had shared hardships, celebrated victories, and supported each other through moments of fear and doubt. Their friendship had deepened into a quiet understanding, a partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual care. They did not need words to communicate their dedication to the tribe. They acted through their choices, their guidance, and the example they set. One afternoon, Samuel noticed a group of children playing near the stream. They were practicing skills he had taught them, carrying water safely, working together to build small shelters, and helping each other navigate the rocky terrain. He smiled, seeing how far they had come.
Aylin approached, her eyes following the children's movements.
"Bay, Look at them, she said softly. They are not just surviving. They are learning, growing, and becoming the future of our people. Samuel nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment.
They are stronger than I could have imagined.
And they will continue to grow, carrying everything we have taught them, along with the wisdom of their ancestors.
The tribe had also begun to establish routines that ensured long-term survival.
The adults rotated responsibilities for gathering food, caring for animals, and maintaining the shelters. The elders shared their knowledge of the land, teaching younger generations about the plants, the stars, and the signs of approaching weather. The children learned from everyone, observing and practicing the skills that would one day allow them to lead and protect their people. It was a community built on cooperation, respect, and shared responsibility, a stark contrast to the fear and desperation that had once filled the valley. Despite the progress, Samuel and Aylin knew that challenges would continue to arise. The desert was unpredictable, and outsiders could still pose threats. But the tribe was no longer helpless. They were strong, united, and resourceful.
Samuel and Aylin continued to prepare them for any difficulties, teaching problem-solving skills, encouraging creative thinking, and fostering resilience.
Every success, every small victory, reinforced the tribe's confidence and strengthened the bond between them. Over time, Samuel realized that the promise Aylin had made was not only about the physical strength of her children, but also about the strength of character, courage, and hope that they embodied.
Each child he watched grow, learn, and thrive was a testament to the power of guidance, trust, and love. Aylin's words, once a mysterious plea, now resonated deeply within him.
Saving her tribe had become more than a task. It had become a mission to nurture life, hope, and legacy. One evening, under a sky full of stars, Samuel and Aylin walked together to a small hill overlooking the valley. The camp below was alive with quiet activity. Fires flickered, casting warm light across the faces of the tribe members as they prepared for the night. Children laughed and played, adults worked or rested, and elders shared stories of the past. The sight filled both Samuel and Aylin with a sense of accomplishment and hope. "They are ready for the future," Aylin said softly, her hand brushing against Samuel's. "But their help has given them strength, but their hearts have done the rest. They will carry this forward for generations."
Samuel nodded, feeling a quiet joy that went beyond words.
"It is more than I ever imagined. We have not just saved them. We have given them a chance to grow, to live, and to thrive. And they will remember this, not just as a story, but as their own strength."
In the months that followed, the tribe continued to prosper.
Samuel helped them establish small gardens, teach the children more advanced skills, and create systems to ensure that everyone had enough food and water. Aylin guided them with her wisdom and experience, helping them maintain balance between survival and culture. Together, they ensured that the traditions of the Apache were preserved even as they adapted to new ways of living. The children's growth became a symbol of the tribe's progress. They ran with energy, spoke confidently, and assisted in tasks that would have been impossible when Samuel first arrived. They were strong not just physically, but in spirit, courage, and unity. Their laughter filled the valley, a constant reminder of hope and life. The elders watched with pride, knowing that the lessons they had passed down, combined with the guidance of Samuel and Aylin, had created a future worth celebrating. Samuel began to realize that his own life had changed in ways he could not have anticipated. The experience of helping the tribe had taught him patience, compassion, and the true meaning of courage. He had formed connections that transcended culture, language, and background. He had learned that leadership was not about power but about service, understanding, and the willingness to act for the greater good. Aylin also reflected on their journey.
She had come to Samuel with a desperate plea, hoping to save her people. Together, they had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty. They had worked tirelessly to nurture life and hope. And now she could see the fruits of their efforts in the thriving children, the confident adults, and the restored spirit of the tribe. She knew that their legacy would last for generations, carried forward in the hearts and minds of the people they had saved. One morning, Samuel noticed a small group of children practicing new skills he had taught them, building simple shelters, carrying water efficiently, and working together to tend small gardens.
Island watched them proudly.
They are learning quickly, she said, and they will continue to grow stronger with every challenge they face. Samuel smiled. They remind me of why we started this journey. Every effort, every challenge we faced, it has led to this. They are the living proof that hope and perseverance can change the world. The tribe had become more than just a group of survivors. They were a community, united by trust, courage, and the lessons they had learned. Samuel and Island had guided them, but the tribe had embraced their own strength. They were ready for whatever challenges the desert might present, prepared to face obstacles with wisdom, skill, and resilience. As the sun set, painting the sky with warm hues of orange and purple, Samuel and Island stood together looking over the valley. Fires flickered, children laughed, and adults worked in harmony. The tribe had not only survived, they had thrived. The promise of strong children, once a mysterious statement, had become a living reality. These children represented hope, courage, and the legacy of their people, nurtured by guidance, love, and determination. Samuel turned to Island, his eyes reflecting pride and gratitude. "We did more than I ever thought possible," he said. "We saved lives, yes, but we also created something lasting. The tribe's future is secure, thanks to your strength, their courage, and the efforts we have shared." Aylin smiled, a quiet, serene smile.
"It was never just my strength or yours," she said. "It was all of us, together. And the children, they will carry this forward."
They will grow strong, just as I promised. And one day they will tell stories of this time, of hope, courage, and survival. The desert, once harsh and unforgiving, now seemed alive with possibility. The wind whispered through the rocks, carrying the laughter of children and the quiet strength of a people who had overcome adversity. Samuel and Island stood side by side, knowing that the journey had transformed them as much as it had transformed the tribe. Their efforts had created a lasting legacy, a story of survival, trust, and the power of hope that would endure for generations. In the years that followed, the story of Samuel and Island became a part of the tribe's history. Children grew up strong and confident, carrying the lessons they had learned. The tribe remained resilient, their culture preserved and their future secured. And in quiet moments beneath the desert sky, Samuel and Island would look over the valley, remembering the journey that had begun with a desperate plea and had led to a lasting bond, a thriving tribe, and a legacy of hope.